Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release wall of our memory, grab a copy off the shelf, pop it in the old VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Touchstone Pictures.
And we're here to help you navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. So Mike, here we go. Season 3, episode 1. Off to a new start.
Yeah, that's right. And we're starting off with wow. One can only say this is starting off with a bang.
Yeah, some would christen something new with champagne. We're christening our new thing with fecal matter. Let's be honest. But, me and Mike, we didn't really take any time off from the previous season finale. We just want to swing right into it. So, because that's what we do, Mike. We work.
Yes.
So this is... So we want to kick off season 3 with a bang, as Mike was alluding to. And we picked... This movie is 90s AF, as the kids say, Mike. You can't find a more 90s movie than Con Air from 1997.
That's right. This is a routine prison transfer, correct?
It was supposed to be a routine prisoner. But see, according to the trailer, gathering 10 of the highest, most highly deadly criminals is a routine transfer, apparently. But that's just one of many continuity errors that I think we'll flush out. But this one's fun, needless to say. So, and it's got, we've got Nicholas Coppola on the show today, Mike. So anything with Nic Cage is good.
You got Lloyd Dobler too.
We certainly do. So having said all that, let's just kind of jump in, because the sooner we start, the sooner we can finish. Me and Mike had some collective PTSD after our viewings here.
We're not exactly bearing the lead here. This movie was a tough watch.
I just now came to my faculties after yesterday's viewing. It's just a little, behind the wall here. Me and Mike don't watch these movies together. We made it a point to never watch these movies together because we wanted to save all our reactions with each other for you. But I feel like really needed the emotional support you provide, Mike. We may have to reconsider that clause in our contract. But,
yeah.
All right. So enough of that. Con Air, 1997. So this was directed by Simon West, who's a music video director by trade. He gave us the Rick Astley "Never Gonna Give You Up" video, Mike.
Thanks, Simon.
Yeah, Rick rolled forever. And he also did some other excrement called Tomb Raider and Travolta's The General's Daughter. So we probably knew where we're going here. Piling onto the crap was the screenwriter, the excrement, Scott Rosenberg. He's responsible for the failed Marvel spinoff Venom with Tom Hardy. One of Molly's favorites, our co-host Molly's, Kangaroo Jack. He wrote that one.
Oh.
And oddly enough, he snuck a decent one in here, High Fidelity with John Cusack.
Okay.
Dragged John Cusack along for the ride on this one. Although uncredited, J.J. Abrams has a script doctor credit to this one. So J.J. Abrams had his hand in this as well. Insert own joke here.
There's too many jokes coming in.
Yes. So this was released on June 6, 1997. It had a budget of $75 million, Mike.
Wow.
Think how much that money could have gone to other than this movie. Low-income housing, inner city schools.
Somebody hearing it now would say 75. That's on the cheap. But in 1997 numbers, it's 75 million.
That's the equivalent of about $100 million today.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I looked it up just out of curiosity.
Gotcha. Back then, studios weren't exactly throwing $100 million at every production like they do now. There's a lot more. There's a lot more money invested in some of the movies you see today as opposed to back then. I would think 75 million would probably be on the upper echelon of movies from 97 as far as production.
Yeah. They probably should have spent more money on making it good, but
right. Script maybe it's more script doctors.
Yeah. Well, regardless of all that, the poor participants that were forced to kind of portray the script was the cast. So, Mike, why don't you kind of enlighten us on who our principal players were here?
I got a blank. Justin, I have a blank sheet. I had some issues when I was writing some of the stuff up, so I can vaguely go through some of the players in our movie, quote unquote. We had the aforementioned Nic Cage, who I think this is his third appearance in our podcast, and Face Off.
We've actually covered what's known as the Cage Holy Trinity. That would be the Con Air, Face Off, and The Rock, and we've concluded the set.
Thank goodness. But yeah, he's our lead. He's Cameron Poe, Army Ranger, and sporting a relatively uncomfortable Alabama accent, and a mullet. The accent's not too bad. He was able to pull it off in Raising Arizona fairly well as far as just doing the generic Southern accent, and this one kind of he dials it up a notch or two with the drawl.
As a Southerner, I'm going to defer to you on that, Mike, because I got other opinions on the. It was again like the Eric Quaylen from Cliffhanger. It kind of rumbles around its intended target. It is a Southern accent in certain forms. So. Well, you're more attuned to it, so I'm gonna trust you. But I'm still gonna hate. I'm still gonna hate if that's okay.
Okay, well that's fine. Right. I understand.
All right, who else you got, Mike? Who else?
We have John Malkovich, who he's our head baddie as far as being a prisoner. He plays Cyrus the Virus, and apparently he's known for has quite a penchant for killing people.
Killed more people than cancer.
That's right. He's a virus, and
clever, right?
He's our ingenious villain in the movie. And then you have our law enforcement represented by John Cusack, who is the college, the quintessential college boy in this movie, and he's the young agent that somehow is the quarterback for this flight. I don't understand how he got this job or is the lead of it, but like I say, he's smart and he's the college kid. And John Cusack's one of those guys I'd have always had trouble seeing him outside of high school. He's always going to be Lloyd Dobler or Lane Meyer, Hoops, whatever from the other movie. Yeah. he's always that guy. It's hard to picture him grown up. Yeah, grown up. Yeah, he's still, even when he's playing Grosse Point Blank, he's going back for a high school reunion. So he's always that attachment. It's hard to picture him as like the lead of a big government operation here. And then we have a lot of characters peppered in as far as these prisoners. We have Steve Buscemi, he always plays a weird guy, and of course he's our weird serial killer in this movie. We have Ving Rhames, who most people remember as from Pulp Fiction, and what's his name? Micheletti Williamson, from Forrest Gump.
Michael T. Williams.
Michael T. Thank you.
Yeah,
and he put shrimp on everything. So you would know him. And of course, he's paired with another guy from Alabama in this movie. So poor guy. And then who else we got? There is there's a character I want to point out that was in Lost, and he's the pilot of this plane somehow, and he's involved in another plane crash. So he played the U.S. Marshal in Lost, and he's in this movie briefly. And I thought that was interesting because, hey, it's like Harold Perrineau from The Edge. He's in 2 plane crashes. This is really weird, right?
Yeah.
And then, Justin, this one's just for you. There is a guy that appears in this movie briefly as a bar owner named Dale. Did you recognize him?
I to be honest, I wasn't paying too much attention at some points. So.
He was in Sanford Arms, and he also appeared as a sheriff's deputy in Laser Blast who's not quite ready for some football.
Wow, nice pull. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
And then, like I said, there's Rachel Ticotin from Total Recall, who makes a brief appearance, and Nicolas Cage's wife, who I have no idea what her name was.
Her name's Monica Potter. She's kind of like the poor man's Julia Roberts at the time.
But I think she's just bookended in this movie just to be in the music video for How to Live Without You. Yeah. So, and that's pretty much it. I don't want to even bore you with other characters in here. Just don't worry about it.
Mike, you could never bore me. I think we also want to make mention of Dave Chappelle's in this movie.
Yeah.
And perennial character actor, Danny Trejo. is also in this movie.
Oh, the dead Mex. Yeah, he always dies in every movie.
Yeah. Yes, he does. And he had, I think he's an Irish actor, Cole Meany. He played the
from
DEA agent.
Deep Space.
Yeah.
No, he's from Star Trek Next Generation as like engineer. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a great attitude through the whole movie too. So
he was fantastic.
Wasn't he great? Yeah.
He wasn't a stereotype at all.
No, not at all. So thanks for that, Mike. Well done. Right off the top of your head. Just a couple of notes on the cast, as we always like to do. Patrick Swayze was considered for the role of Cameron Poe.
Of course.
He already had the accent and the mullet. Why not just throw him in there? But he turned it down. Other actors considered for
Harrison Ford.
Cusack role. No, oddly enough, no.
Damn
it. For John Cusack's role, we had Charlie Sheen, Robert Downey Jr., and Matthew Broderick again. Why is Matthew Broderick always considered for every movie that Charlie Sheen and Robert Downey were in the 90s? I don't get it. Perennial villains, typecast villains, William Dafoe and Mickey Rourke were also considered for the Malkovich role.
Yes.
But Malkovich ended up taking it, actually turned down Air Force One to do this movie.
Oh, that's what Harrison Ford was doing. Okay.
Yeah, I think he was already busy.
He was on another plane. He was on a plane with some more, I don't know, meaner customers.
Yeah, so just a few notes on the making of this film and the subsequent release. Don Simpson, the producing partner of Jerry Bruckheimer, they had split ways before this movie, and he actually ended up passing away. He thought this movie was too dumb to make. If a movie's too dumb for Don Simpson, but yeah. So
I'll give you $100 right now if you remember his race car name and
Aldo Peretti from Days of Thunder.
Oh, all right. I'll send you a check right now.
I looked it up because I knew you were going to ask. Sorry. Okay. John Malkovich famously hates this movie.
No way.
Yeah. Well, it did a couple things. One, it kind of typecast him from a quirky kind of character actor into a typecast villain, weirdo villain. As you notice, after this movie, he was always cast as the villain for the next 10 years, and he's kind of drifted to more European films and more offbeat characters as a result of this movie. He also hated the screenwriters. Primarily, he's a method actor, and there wasn't a whole lot of method here, Mike. They were just writing the script as they go, and that he doesn't really fit into that kind of framework, and so he hated it. John Cusack shared his opinion on the movie. He hated it. He said he only did it for the money. So, yeah.
Why do it? Why do? I know.
We talked about this last time.
It pays for a house. I know that, but
actors just take the fandom out of it and just take it for the job that it is sometimes.
But then don't complain about being labeled as such and such later.
I get you.
Like I say, I still see John Cusack holding a boombox over his head. I don't picture him as anything else. But
these are occupational hazards, just like anything else. I need to learn how to adjust to.
I don't picture him riding what the hell was he driving? What the hell did he not drive in this movie?
Yeah, if it wasn't tied down, he was driving it. So. Yeah, so Nic Cage spent some time in Alabama to kind of fine-tune his accent. As far as I'm concerned, he should have stayed there. Wow. He filmed Face Off with this simultaneously, Mike. They were all essentially filmed at the same time. Imagine having that on your plate. You're Castor Troy one day and you're Cameron Poe the next. And I would bet my paycheck that we don't have for the show, but I bet he said some Castor Troy lines in this movie and didn't even realize it, and no one else did either. So
I could lick a peach for hours. Maybe they should have inserted that line somewhere.
It would explain a lot of things. In France, they had to rename this movie to The Wings of Hell, which we can kind of relate to.
I like that.
Because the word con in French is slang for dumb people. So I don't know
that works even better.
I don't know why they bothered, but there you go. And we had a body count of 43, so a nice death per minute ratio in this one as well. So not bad. So kind of set
yeah. Well, we'll get into. I don't know how you count. I've seen the body count crap before on some of these where they try to count it, but when a plane crashes through a casino in Vegas, whatever,
it's not those are on-screen deaths.
Okay, all right.
So the implied deaths don't count, but I'm fighting hard to make that a reality.
I understand. Okay, all right.
But okay,
I'm ready.
So you might have not ascertained by our tone already. This is a stinkburger, but this is essentially, I consider this movie the prototype show for this podcast, and it was. When we watched this the first time, we had a completely different opinion, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Time has put some miles on us, and we've looked back at it. But it really kind of exemplifies the reason we started this podcast. So we'll flush that out as we go. So the framework in 1997 is how this was made. So we always kind of look at what's going on in pop culture to see what was responsible, what was the breeding ground for this. On the radio, Mike, we had I'll Be Missing You again with Puff Daddy and Faith Evans. We had Bop by the Hanson Brothers. And we had "Wannabe" by the Spice Girls, and those were the top three on the charts during the release of this film.
Wow.
Yeah. So
say no more. I
yeah,
think we understand. There we go. I understand why this movie was so popular.
That's the petri dish where this thing grew from. Competing films around this time this summer, we had The Lost World had come out. Jurassic Park: The Lost World, Mike, one of your favorites. That had come out in theaters a couple weeks earlier. Speed 2 came out the week after. Batman and Robin was also that weekend as well, and then Face Off came out 3 weeks later. So you had two Nicolas Cage movies in June that were essentially the same movie, just tweaked a little bit. So that was the landscape in 1997. So a couple other things about pop culture I thought are of interest probably to nobody. But this was the year Google was first registered as a domain name. So this is the first year of Google. The first Harry Potter book was released, The Philosopher's Stones. That philosopher was too controversial here, so we had to call it the Sorcerer's Stone. I still don't understand that. And in Japan, there was a Pokemon episode on Japanese television that caused seizures for about 25 Japanese kids.
That's funny.
That's funny.
That's funny right there.
Yeah. So, all right. So speaking of media that has a detrimental effect on the human brain, let's go ahead and get started on our recap of the film, Mike. So I'm essentially ready. Are you?
Yeah, I think it's time to gag and bag this Nazi mother.
All right. Deep breath before the plunge. All right. So I think we're ready. Mike, hit the button. So right away we get the indication of what the movie's going to be like, Mike. You see the Touchstone logo, and you also see the Bruckheimer Sands Simpson logo with the tree and the lightning bolt.
Yes.
And then we kind of fade into like a graduation ceremony that's narrated by our old friend Curly Bill, Powers Booth.
That was Power. Okay.
Yeah, he's giving his speech to the graduation class of Army Rangers, and we see a young, clean-shaven, well-coiffed Cameron Poe, played by Nicolas Cage. And that horrible song kicks in already. How Do I Live Without You?
Oh yeah,
start right away.
Mm-hmm.
That this version, the first version's the one by the original artist Trisha Yearwood.
Yeah, she had.
Is she Mrs. She's married to.
I think she was Clint Black. Right?
Yeah.
She had a hit in the '80s when she was a teenager. I think she's in love with the boy or something.
Yeah.
And I think it was Clint Black she married. Don't hold me to that.
I won't. Cameron loves Monica Potter, right? Sweet little Monica Potter. She's a waitress in the local dive bar. So he goes to meet her that night to celebrate.
In Mobile, Alabama.
And they get hassled by a bunch of Alabama thugs, Mike. They're trying to start a fight with the Army guy, and he's not having it, and they start harassing.
He's why we lost Vietnam, Justin.
That's right. I love they said Nam too.
Yeah.
And they're trying to goad him by flirting and harassing Monica Potter, and he's the bigger man for a while. But of course he has to go back into his car at the end of the night, and cue the tropes. It's raining and it's dark, right? That's like every 90s movie, so something bad's going to happen. And they confront him in the parking lot as they're leaving, and kind of gang up on him and start beating the crap out of poor Cameron Poe. And Monica's screaming for them to stop. And Cage kind of turns into what he is. He's a ass kicker. He's a weapon. Yeah, we'll get that in a minute. So he ends up having a fight and dismantling this crew. And the final guy he smashes in the nose and kills the guy. This is the first of hundreds of thousands of continuity problems, which we'll address as we go. But this is essentially impossible. It's implied that he smashed the guy's nose and it went to his brain and killed him. But as we all know, Mike, the nose is cartilage.
Yeah,
that's not a thing. But the next scene is him in the courtroom trying to defend himself. He pleads guilty to manslaughter, and I think the judge and the screenwriters had a little private conversation for plot convenience. The judge sentences him to prison because, as you know, Mike, he is, as a member of the military, he is a deadly weapon.
That's right.
And regular laws don't apply to him. So he gets sent to the pokey, and then you get the big Con Air logo. Right?
Yeah.
So that's your prologue right there. They've already violated like 5 reality rules, but hey, come on, it's a movie, right? So we open up, the credits start rolling, and there's this exceedingly painful dialogue montage of Nicolas Cage voicing the letters he writes to his daughter Casey, and Casey reciprocates with so this was dialogue from,
and he does the same exercises that Patrick Swayze does in Roadhouse.
Yeah, they're standard issue. I think Robert De Niro did him in Cape Fear too. And just, you make the best of what you have around you, right? But he betters himself, and he reads a lot of stuff. But he anyway.
I thought that when he was learning Spanish, I thought that would lead to something in the movie, like a key plot moment or something. It was like, wow, he's learning Spanish in prison.
No, it
meant nothing.
What I found about this movie, they just put a bunch of stuff. So he shares a cell with Bubba Gump, Michael T. Williams. They're both getting out together with us, so that's great. So they get out together, and of course they're in a federal prison, and there's no such thing as parole, Mike, when you're at the federal level. But hey,
oh yeah,
I didn't go to law school, but I did kind of know that. So the premise is that they're going to get put on a prisoner transfer plane to get released, and by the way, they're going to be joined by about 10 of the most vicious, ferocious criminals ever to be on planet Earth, and he's going to catch a ride with those guys. So
yeah.
Okay.
That was kind of weird how only 3 of them had their own cages, but then you had the other guys just kind of sprinkle around the plane.
Just no problem, right? But there's more. There's more, Mike. There's more. So the plane is owned. The transfer plane is used by John Cusack, and he's trying to facilitate a calm and peaceful transfer. But it's also going to co-opted by DEA agent Cole Meany, who's going to put one of his officers on the plane undercover. Because there happens to be a cartel member on there, and that's important later, I suppose, if we get to it. So
again, a plot thread that doesn't make sense, but
yeah,
I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. So they use this scene as kind of like, at WrestleMania, where there's like a battle royale, they introduce all the wrestlers that are coming down.
Slow-mo even.
Yeah, so they introduce all the characters, and we start with Malkovich and Dave Chappelle. Got Danny Trejo, Ving Rhames, and they've all done bad things and give a little bagel around on everybody, but we all get the point, right? So, and it only takes about 30 seconds before, as they all sit down, they all start pulling out contraband they smuggled on the plane. Every one of those guys has some
shiv or something underneath the skin.
Or something. They've got
Dave Chappelle has like a little gasoline in a vial that he swallowed. So
he swallows a balloon and pulls up some gas in a match that created a diversion, because they've been in cahoots to plan out this raid where they're going to create a diversion, take over the plane, and then deliver this drug cartel kingpin back. So that's essentially the quote unquote plot, Mike.
Hey, plot.
Yeah. So they get everybody on the plane, they take off, and like I said, after about 3 minutes, the plane's completely taken over by all the bad guys. Rachel Ticotin is a guard who gets quickly handcuffed to the plane, so she's rendered disabled in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
The first thing they've got to do, they've got to head to Carson City to do a little prisoner swap. It's kind of like a layover, Mike, where they're gonna let some of the violent criminals off and put some more on. And Carson City is a civilian airport, so I guess that's what the kind of things they do, and not like military airports. But
sure, why not? Go ahead.
I'm nitpicking.
Yeah, you are.
But my favorite thing about Carson City stop, Mike, is we got a sandstorm. and not the catchy disco beat sandstorm that they play at
South Carolina.
South Carolina, that's right. No, this is the sandstorm, the deep hurting sandstorm, right? But it's just a needless thing. I don't know why they needed it, but it looked cool. And they pick up some of the next part of their gang, including my favorite, Swamp Thing. He was a big guy. I think he was on Lost at one point.
Yeah, right? He was another guy.
The others, right?
Yeah, he was another. Yeah. He wasn't involved in a plane crash and Lost, but he was already there.
Yeah,
he played Tom.
Right. And they picked up an obligatory flaming gay stereotype, trans guy.
Yes.
That was really added a lot to the movie for me. And we also pick up Garland Green, played by Steve Buscemi. And he's the only guy that they really treat like a criminal in this movie. They kind of take
Hannibal
him out
Lecter
of,
style.
yeah, yeah. They kind of handle him like a velociraptor from Jurassic Park. He's like, he's got shotguns on
They
him,
had
and
simultaneous
yeah,
keys they had to use to open the
yeah.
his cage.
So as they're loading on the new prisoners, of course the bad guys swap uniforms with the guards, and they, because of the sandstorm, they facilitate the swap without going under the radar. And they also rip out the transponder of the plane. So they give the transponder to Dave Chappelle, who wanders off screen inexplicably forever, and has 3 or 4 scenes dedicated to him sweet talking an airport worker that really goes nowhere. We cut back to John Cusack, who's back at the original prison where all the inmates left from, and they're monitoring the progress of the plane. And the guards kind of go into Malkovich's old room, and he's conveniently left all the evidence behind in the cell, explaining in Scooby-Doo style exactly what the mission is and all the plans, and so that was nice. So he leaves enough clues behind for even John Cusack to figure out what's happening. When that drops the penny, he realizes that there's something amiss and wants to go to Carson City as fast as he can. He steals the DE agent's played by Cole Meany, his beloved Corvette. He steals his Corvette, which is just left in the parking lot with the keys in it, Mike.
As soon as you see this car too, it's going to get destroyed.
Yeah,
somewhere in the movie. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it. Look at this fancy car driven by the the mean bastard guy. It's going.
Yeah, it had the same lifespan as Gary Busey and Speed.
Exactly.
He wasn't going to make it.
Utah, give me 2.
Yeah. so Cusack's speeding down the Alkaline Flats, trying to get caught up at the airport. In the meanwhile, as they swap over, they get back up in the air. They take off and forget to pick up Dave Chappelle. So he's trying to run and get caught up, and he gets, I guess, snatched up into the landing gear, and he freezes to death. Yeah,
apparently, yeah.
So pilot Swamp Thing says there's some drag on the plane, so they send Nicolas Cage into the belly of the plane to see what's wrong with the landing gear, and he sees he sees Dave Chappelle there frozen, and he writes all the information about what's happened in marker on Chappelle's shirt and then throws him out the plane 40,000 feet, like a Chappellogram, Mike.
Good one.
Yeah. But yeah, there you go. They're headed towards Lerner Airfield, which is a diversion from their original landing space, but no one can tell because they moved the transponder. See, clever, Mike.
Oh yeah.
And the plane's kind of having a hard time because of the landing gear, and it ends up crash landing in this abandoned airfield. And the reason they're going there is because the cartel guy, Francisco Cindino, is supposed to be there with his fancy cartel plane to kind of expedite everybody to Mexico when they get away. But there's no plane, Mike.
Of course not.
All right, so that's a problem. So they kind of crash land, and they have to spend like a good section of the movie just like with shovels digging their plane out. They realize they're just going to have to figure out a way to get that plane back on the runway if they're going to make it. And during this time, Bubba Gump he's a diabetic. And he's been denied his insulin, so Nic Cage leaves the plane to go find a needle to administer his insulin, and he runs into John Cusack. They kind of form an alliance. And is the show over yet?
You're going over way too much details, man.
Yeah, this is where
did you know the plane's called the Jailbird? Did you like that? That was clever, right?
That was clever, yeah. So anyway, the penny's been dropped, and the feds are alerted to what's going on, and they're all coming to this boiling point where the feds are going to fight the prisoners, and so there's this big smashy slow-mo explosion Satriani music set piece for about 20 minutes where they're trying to kill everybody. Nicolas Cage gets into his white tank top and his ultra tight jeans and start doing flying kicks, which are fun. But they end up actually getting in the plane and heading towards Mexico. And on their flight path, they fly over Las Vegas, Mike. And
yeah.
Seasoned pilot Swamp Thing decides that they're not going to make it and they're going to end up crashing. I know a little bit about Vegas. We've been there a few times, Mike. And
yeah, I know where you're going. I hope.
He says that he's going to have to land on the Strip. If you know that area, Las Vegas Municipal Airport is about 2 blocks away from the Strip.
Yeah,
But
they're never gonna make it, Justin.
they're never going to make it. But he don't. So there's this big giant conclusion where the plane lands on the Vegas Strip, taking out everything in its path, and it smashes and crashes, and of course the good guys survive, and
Yay!
the really bad guys survive. Everybody else either gets killed or captured by police at the end. And Ving Rhames and Malkovich hijack
A fire truck.
a fire truck, and they speed off. And and after the crash, Cusack and Cage meet up together, and Nicolas Cage is still a criminal at this point, but he can wander freely, and they both jump on these motorcycles that are conveniently left with the keys in them, and they start this horrendous slow-mo explosion-filled whiny guitar music set piece where the big chase scene. Ving Rhames gets killed by a motorcycle that John Cusack abandons, and that motorcycle actually speeds up after he jumps off.
Yeah, I love that.
It smashes into Ving Rhames, kills him. In this Ben-Hur sequence, Nicolas Cage jumps off the motorcycle and has a big fight on top of the
I was thinking more Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they capture one of the Nazi trucks and they try to grab the driver, and I was like, oh my God, this is just like it, except swap the horse out for a motorcycle or something.
Those two movies should not be in the same sentence.
I'm sorry.
I'm just going to keep going. But as you expect, at the end, there's this big explosion crash. John Malkovich's body goes flying, lands on a conveyor belt, which he rides calmly until he falls down, and his head is conveniently placed in the path of a pile driver. The pile driver comes down and smashes his coconut, and then they drive all the way back to the original crash scene, and Nicolas Cage is reunited with sweet little Monica Potter and their daughter, and there's a big kiss, and then
I'm so glad they ended up there just a few seconds after this plane crashes in a place where they didn't even know the plane was going to go.
Yeah,
that was amazing timing.
We'll get there in a minute. Okay. And the movie kind of cleverly ends with Steve Buscemi escaping and sipping a Mai Tai and playing
was it craps? Yeah, he was doing
craps.
The dice. Yeah.
He's playing craps in Vegas, implying that no one recognizes, including federal cops in Vegas.
Let's just go out in public. Don't even change your appearance.
They don't even recognize, but yeah. And that's the clever ending. Sweet, merciful God, that is the ending, Mike.
Oh my God.
Well, I have questions. I have some questions, but we'll get to those in a minute, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to guess this, even though there was a movie that came out 3 weeks later with Nicolas Cage. I assume this movie did really well.
It's funny you should ask, Mike. It had a big opening weekend. It made $24 million. Not bad. It had a domestic box office of $100 million. Back in those days, $100 million was kind of like the benchmark, the watershed for a movie to be a blockbuster. So it did that. And it piled on about $224 million from a worldwide box office. This is a Oscar-nominated film, Mike. They got two Oscars. I
saw that. Yeah, I noticed the song probably, right?
Yeah, it got Best Sound, which it lost to Titanic, and it was nominated for Best Song. This was the LeAnn Rimes version at the end, sung by the 14-year-old bikini-clad LeAnn Rimes, but that also lost to Titanic. But it did win worst song or best song for the Razzies. Big winner in the Razzies that year, Mike. The other award that it won with this organization, I'm proud to announce, is one of my favorite of all time, Most Reckless Disregard for Human Life and Public Property Award.
Yay!
Yeah.
That is a good one. I didn't know they did that one.
See, that's something MTV wasn't clever enough to come up with.
No.
Which, by the way, ignored this movie altogether, Mike, which is weird.
Yeah. Whatever. I ignore them.
Yeah. So this was very well received on a audience level. Critics had their own version, as kind of shared our view now. Michael Bay has announced that he's shown interest in producing a Con Air 2.
Ooh.
Shocking.
F him. God.
And that article, Mike, I also read that Face Off 2 is actually in development. So
see, I'm on board with that one.
I'm okay with that one too. All right, but once was enough for this guy. So, yeah. All right, before we get to the too much further, Mike, let's do our obligatory grumpy meter. So I'm kind of spent. I need a minute to recover. So why don't you go first and just kind of give me your impressions from your first watch way back when, and then your review on your next watch.
That's the thing. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what I thought when I was leaving the theater in 1997 after watching this with my wife. But I had generally good feelings about it.
Yeah,
I remember being annoyed by the song at the end of it, thinking, okay, we watched all these deaths and all this violence, and then we hear, how do I live with God? Yeah, it's like, and the little girl, and we watch a little girl get her stuffed bunny from,
oh, sweet,
this
right?
greasy haired, mullet haired, white tank top wearing Alabama fake accent guy. But other than that, the movie itself was entertaining and a nice summer popcorn blockbuster.
There you go.
And then 26 years later, I'm watching it and thinking, why was this so popular? This can't be. This movie is laughable. And again, it suffers from the same problems that Congo suffered from, just quippy. I'm going to guess J.J. Abrams had a hand in some of the little, quirky little lines, like makes the Manson family look like the Partridge Family. Oh. And those kind of lines that were supposed to be inserted to add some levity to it. But again, you're watching just violent criminals. Steve Buscemi is assumed to like
he's a cannibal,
kill a little girl, and has this weird scene where he's singing. He's got the whole world in his hands with her, and it's like, what the hell is this?
Not good.
And that's peppered in with just just dozens of law enforcement guys dying, and the head of the operation, John Cusack, continuing apparently to be the this is my plane. He's still heading this operation. It's like, what's going on here?
I said that a lot.
Yeah, I felt like Wallace Shawn watching this. I kept thinking, this is inconceivable. This movie, I don't know how this was made. I'm just watching it thinking, this is so stupid and so many levels, and just you could have one of those Cinema Sins like videos on this that could be as long as the 2-hour movie I just watched. It was terrible. And so many, just like I said, I don't. Yeah. Let's just say, watching it again, I can't believe my 26-year-old self liked it or tolerated it, because my 52-year-old self found it very, very tough to watch.
I'm pretty much verbatim right there with you, Mike. That's why I thought this was such an interesting.
And there were no monkeys and no mountain climbing in it.
Even still, right?
Right.
I had the same kind of opinion of it. So I did not see this in the theater, but I did see a VHS rental of it, and I knew I must have liked it on some level. I probably repressed it, but this should have been bad enough to stand out for me at the time, and it didn't. So I'm assuming that at some point I liked it, or just didn't find the faults in it, at least maybe the latter. But that's why I thought this was such an interesting dynamic for the show, is because this is exactly what it is. Yeah. We liked it, our younger selves, without context or things like that. We just liked this movie for what it was on its base value, which was a dumb popcorn action movie. And again, this is that's the grumpy part, is us watching it as grown men.
I know, and right, and I blame this movie for creating what came after it. Movies like Smoking Aces or 3,000 Miles of Graceland. Just violent, for violence sake. And you just let's get a whole bunch of guys and have them act really like anti-heroes, and one survives at the end. It's just
in a weird way, it's like it created a bunch of movies, and this movie itself that has no respect for the audience in a weird way. It's like you're gonna take this and you're gonna swallow it down because you're stupid and you don't know any better, and you're gonna give us our money, and you're gonna do it the next time we make a comparably stupid movie. So anyway, the first time I watched this, I was probably a 2.5 out of 5. This one, I'm going 0. I'm going 0 out of 5. Like I'm
the nail.
This one pegs the meter for me. So I was just genuinely repulsed on every level watching this movie, and some of it's got to do with some maturation and
Just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just you just look at the broad caricatures, and the movie loses you in just its motive. Cliffhanger did the same thing, and I encourage people to watch at least or listen to our podcast Cliffhanger and watch the movie. Maybe if you're feeling really sorry for yourself,
not necessarily in that order, but yeah,
right. But the motive of it was, it was kind of mumbled at you in a minute or two. It's like, what? Wait, what? They're moving a whole bunch of money and they're crossing the mountains with a plane. Why are they going that way? And this had the same thing. It was like the motives told to you like a mumble, and it's just like blah, blah, blah. It reminded me of Evil Dead 3 when Ash is trying to recite the words right before he picks up the Necronomicon, and he says like Klaatu Verata. Blah, blah, blah. And that's the motive for this movie. It's, you heard it and you're like, what? Wait, they're transferring prisoners to Carson City, picking what? Why isn't what? And you hear that and it just immediately like, oh, this is stupid. Why didn't I pick this up when I was younger watching this?
That's the thing. The majority of this movie is the part. It's just
it is.
It's like, and I think that's why I have so much disdain about it, because the premise itself is weak, but I think it could have been done well in some capacity.
Right.
Again, most of these premises for the action movies are thin, but there's movies that pull it off, and there's like Speed, for example, and there's movies that don't.
Yeah.
And this is the latter of those for sure.
Oh,
But it's laziness, it's sloppy, it's lowest common denominator stuff, and I think that's where our maturation level as older guys comes into play. It's like, I don't think it's clever to see donuts being dropped when cops speed off to pick.
Oh, the stereotypes of this movie were off the chart.
Yeah, I don't think that's particularly clever or useful. I think it's lazy. I think that's what got me more than anything is just. But we could seriously go on for years and years, Mike. But I think it's clear to say that we're okay with it as kids, but now we don't like it.
Yes.
So for the reasons that we mentioned, we had a hard time coming up with a list for thematic elements because there were no thematic elements in this movie. Given the amount of unanswered questions from this plot, me and Mike decided to take this week's segment of "You Just Made the List, Pal," and reserve it for our continuing pursuit of any kind of logic or sense from this movie. So our list this week is going to be our top 3. Hey, I still got questions moments about Con Air. So, Mike, why don't you go first? Gather up a few of your observations that gave you some heartburn, or you have some questions about, and let's flesh them out. See if we can help each other out and begin the healing. So,
okay. Well, I thought of a small tip for some listeners in our this goes straight out to our listeners in our podcast audience. If you go to a friend's house and you look through our DVD collection, go to the CO section of that collection. If you see Con Air followed by Congo, get the hell out.
Get the hell out of there.
There you go.
The call's coming from inside the house.
That's right. So, okay. So you want a question?
Just observations that you didn't quite get, Mike, and we'll kind of
observations. Okay. I'm going to go back to broad stereotypes. My question is why so many broad stereotypes? Why show us the gay inmate that runs straight to the suitcase of clothes when they land? I mean, come on.
My favorite element of that character is at the end when he and Nicolas Cage are battling each other. Oh
yes. Yeah. You have expected a purse to come out.
I physically laughed out loud because there's a scene, and if you're careful, you can catch it, where Nic Cage goes to punch him, and he stops, and he alters himself to a open hand slap because he doesn't want to hit a girl, Mike.
Of course,
but he still wants to impede some sort of violence. But it's flawless, it's seamless, and that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. He cocks a punch, but he decides to do a slap instead.
So you had moments you liked.
All right, I had one. All right, I'm back up. I'm a 0.5 out of 5 now.
Maybe that should have been my question for you. Was all right. What did you like? But no, we'll okay. I'll save that one. You have like I said, the typical DEA agent who's a cocky asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dumb prison guard who opens the box that says "Do not open" on it.
Literally. Yeah.
You had the evil, the evil prison guard that was operating the plane. That they had to call everybody names before they came on the plane.
Yep, that was clever.
It's just so much of that going on that it was when you see just they're cardboard cutouts of characters, and the whole, like I said, the whole Steve Buscemi thing with just weird, with why the scene with the little girl, and why show him at the end Hannibal Lecter style where he's like, yeah, he got away with it, and now he's gonna party, party like a high roller at the casino.
Yeah,
just why just that would be my first question.
Okay,
why these weird stereotypes?
That's kind of broad and rhetorical, but that's a good.
It is very broad. Yeah,
I have another one that I think is fun. I hope maybe you can help me out with. This movie has at least 37 documented continuity errors. That's just for the final scene. But I found a few others that I want to bring to your attention, Mike. I think you'll appreciate. One was at the end when the plane crash scene where remember Danny Trejo is handcuffed.
Yes.
To the rail, and he's like standing up, and he's found dead. He's standing up and still cuffed. And the EMTs go up and say, yes, he's dead. And they take his body,
his arm's
away,
still,
and his arm's still there. So my question to you, Mike, is does gravity exist? Why was his dead body severed from his arm still standing up? See, that's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a good one. It was standing. You're right about that.
So apparently that arm was magnetic, and it kept the rest of his magnetic body attached. So that's the kind of mistake that movie like this can just do.
Right.
But there, Danny Trejo's severed arm it defies the rules of physics. Go back and watch it, people. I'm not making this up. So, all right, that's my first one. Mike, you want to go to your next one?
Yes. Why have the song "Sweet Home Alabama" in your movie and not have it as your title song? Why introduce it? And that should, he's a prisoner. He's from Alabama, and the purpose of him on this plane is to go home to Alabama. That would have been a great song to have as your title, and that's how it should. I know they have it in the credits, but that should have been the song that was like this was framed around and bookended by, because he comes home from the Ranger School to go to Alabama, and he comes home from the prisoner to go to Alabama. You paid for the rights. You paid Leonard Skinner for the rights to the song. Why didn't you use it? I know you had to slip in the cheesy, sappy Diane Warren song in there, but come on. That's what I really couldn't get. And the closing credits, not only do you have to hear the "Why Can I Live Without You" song, then you have to hear a snippet of "Sweet Home Alabama." Then you have to hear the boom, 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 the Space Mutiny kind of song there. Yeah. And it was like, I don't understand. I thought Dune had bad credits. This was
not good, there. Right? Yeah. That's a good one, Mike. Mine's a little bit lower on the scale, but still kind of perplexing. You notice the Steve Buscemi scene where they're loading him into the plane, Hannibal Lecter style. If you recall, the timing is he gets put in a cage in the plane, so that means he was physically placed there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you noticed it, but there were dead bodies of dead guards all strewn throughout that plane before he got there. So apparently he got placed in there and put in the cage, and they just ignored the fact that there was this massacre of federal agents in there. So
I looked at it the other way, which is also an error. I thought these were the prisoners, with their little handkerchiefs around their face that were putting him in there. But why did they put him in there? He's one of them.
They immediately let him out. So
go figure.
We're going down the rabbit hole, Mike.
You're nitpicking, Justin. You're nitpicking this great movie.
All right, I'm sorry. All right, I yield. I'll reserve my time and go back to you, Mike. So what do you got?
Well, this is my overarching question. This is not nitpicking. This is the whole theme of this podcast and why this is such a good episode to do for the start of our season. Would people our age, well, I'm not going to say that. Would this movie, if it came out now, would 26-year-old people watch it and like it? And or would they think it was stupid, almost predictable? Have the modern 2023 movie audience been jaded so much, or not jaded, but matured enough to see this as what it is and laugh at this instead of thinking, wow, this is a real crowd pleaser? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm watching this last night thinking, okay, well, I liked it, but maybe it still was kind of fresh. You know, maybe there was something in this movie at the time. I know there was, we talked a little bit about the zeitgeist of the time and this lousy music, but back then, it was we nobody liked Hanson or Spice Girls, but we liked this movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
There was something that resonated with us when we saw it, and like I said, I can't exactly remember what rating I would have given it at the time, but I had general good feelings about this movie, and it's like, wow, what a ride, man. And it was, it really was. But then, were there just so many movies after this that just you ape the same style, and we've just got, like I said, kind of a nerd and jaded to it? Or is it our modern audience? I guess this is my question. Our modern audiences that were our age now, say 26, 27, would they watch this movie now and think that's clever and creative and a good movie? Or would they say, wow, like what the heck was that?
That's a tough one to answer because the conditions are almost apples and oranges to what exists then. They're a little more, the context of where they watch these things are different. So my take on it would be millennials and Gen Zs would like this if it were an 8-part, 44-minute series on Netflix. This would be number one. This would be number one with a bullet. I don't think it could drag.
I like that.
Out.
Yeah.
I don't think it would drag anybody out to the theater.
Right.
Because that's where Marvel lives and no one else can go there. But I think they're a little more attuned to the.
It's the package that's delivered in instead of what's in the package.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think it's dumb as dumb, and then that just carries from one generation. There's a segment of the population that would love this today. I guarantee it. I think it's thinner. I think it's smaller than it was probably at our per capita than it was during our time. But our time, we were just saturated with these things, and it was just one of many. But it's a tough one to answer, Mike.
It's just a bad movie. I mean, we just finished watching Face Off, and before that, we watched The Rock, and those were relatively dumb in quotes movies.
Yeah,
but The Rock actually, it didn't go for this kind of silliness in it, and just almost anarchy to it. It had a plot that it worked with. It had a theme that it worked with, and it didn't sidetrack you into these weird stereotypes and weird just pigeonholed dialogue. You knew you could predict what the character was going to say before he said it, and
right.
They were like, "Oh, that's an awesome catchphrase right there. Let's use it."
That's all this was. It was just a series of.
But yeah, so I mean, this movie was I guess what I'm saying is this movie's a level below Face Off, which is hard to believe. But watching, Face Off actually holds up a little bit.
Face Off has a neat premise, and there's characters, and there's like emotion. There's some emotion in there.
Emotion, that's a good word.
But this one is this whole thing was just to see the bad guy get killed, and there's nothing more to it.
Right.
It wasn't even Malkovich was the only thing I actually liked about this movie. I was kind of rooting for him. All right, so I was rooting for the serial killer, Mike. Sorry.
Did you like it when he killed the one guy and he said "Sayonara"?
All right, okay, I'm going to move on. So I think that's going to have to wrap it up for this show, and because we came out of the gate, we're sprinting, Mike, and we got to pace ourselves if we're going to make it through another 26 like this. So just want to remind everybody that you can catch us on our Instagram page at Grumpy Nostalgia, and if you feel compelled to send us an email or have requests that you want to see this year, send us an email at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. In the coming weeks, we'll have some new co-hosts coming up. We kind of put together like the first half of this season so far, and we've got some really exciting movies. We're going to go a little more niche occasionally, where we're going to find me and Mike tend to like to do the popcorn movies, but we've got some requests for some interesting little subgenres of films that we're going to kind of jump into. So we're going to get into that. We're really excited. So other than that, we're out of the gate. We're ready to go, and we got another 26 shows coming for this season, and we are happy to be bringing them to you. And we're super excited that you'll be joining us on the way. So that's going to kind of wrap it up. Mike, you got anything else you want to add to that before we take off?
Well, Justin, it pays me no never mind, but I wanted to ask you, are you my hummingbird or are you my huckleberry?
Unadvised counsel, I take the Mike, next time, take the bus.
All right.
All right, so for Mike James, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time.
What's going on here?